The tariff war has taken another turn. America's true intentions have been exposed. First, the US reached an agreement with Vietnam, and then it sent letters to over a dozen countries, informing them of new tariff standards. This series of actions can be summarized in one sentence. Quoting John Connally, who was the US Treasury Secretary in 1971, "All foreigners want to screw us, and our job is to screw them first." On August 15th of the same year, President Nixon announced the complete delinking of the dollar from gold and imposed a 10% import tariff on all countries, leading to the collapse of the Bretton Woods system. This move, one could say, screwed all the allies who trusted the United States. Today, the tariff war initiated by Trump is no different. It's designed to harvest allies. Don't ever think that getting along well with Americans will save you from being harvested. That's a delusion. After these announcements, many people focused on the tariffs themselves, calculating their impact and whether the transshipment tariffs were specifically targeting China, and so on. But frankly, I leave none of that as important. Old friends who follow my channel might remember that after the first US-China Geneva talks, I stated that the tariff amount no longer mattered. The US and China had already reached an agreement. The remaining countries that are kneeling will be devoured by Trump one by one. Countries like Vietnam, Japan, India, and the EU will all be harvested. Kneeling is useless. You need a weapon in hand to protect yourself. And China, forgive my bluntness, is somewhat powerless to help these countries as they are being harvested. If you don't save yourselves, there's nothing we can do to save you. In reality, if these manufacturing industries remained in Japan or Europe, they could still pose some competition to China's manufacturing. But once these industries relocate to the United States, they will die instantly. It's like transplanting a plant. You first need to solve environmental problems, such as soil pH, temperature, humidity, and daily sunlight hours. Only after addressing these issues can the transplanted plant survive. Otherwise, even the healthiest plant will die after transplantation. Currently, Samsung has paused the expansion of its chip factory in the US, and TSMC's factory in the US has encountered new obstacles. These are all due to not solving the soil problem. Therefore, compared to tariffs, I'm more concerned about the latter half of Trump's statement. He tweeted that Vietnam would grant the US full market access. Since the agreement hasn't been officially signed and specific details haven't been released, I don't know if this full market access includes the opening of the financial sector. If it does, to what extent will it be open? We don't know yet. However, I believe it certainly won't just be zero tariffs on American goods, as that would mean the US gain no benefit whatsoever, while American citizens would have to pay more in tariffs in the future. Why am I so focused on the opening of the financial sector? Because from this point, we can discern the true determination behind America's so-called manufacturing repatriation. The opening of the financial sector is about dollar hegemony, and the fundamental reason for the decline of American industry is the pursuit of world hegemony. Let me quote Professor Liu Feng from Peking University, who said in an interview, "The four basic elements for the US to maintain hegemony are, first, overwhelming military superiority and deep intervention in world affairs to prevent the emergence of regional powers in Eurasia. Second, providing security guarantees to allies, making them abandon the idea of developing their military and arming themselves, so they can never challenge the US. Third, integrating the world into the American system, continuously expanding the scope of the liberal economic order, and integrating more countries on American terms to create optimal conditions for American capital penetration. Fourth, strictly preventing the proliferation of nuclear weapons. Among these 4 points, 3 are to ensure military hegemony. The only one unrelated to the military is creating optimal conditions for American capital penetration. This has been a crucial means for the US to control the world after breaking the Bretton Woods system. It allows the US to continue expanding while maintaining a dual deficit, fiscal deficit and trade deficit, making other countries pay for America's fiscal and trade deficits. However, pursuing this financial hegemony comes at a cost: American manufacturing. Look at this chart. It shows US steel production. You can see that U.S. steel production peaked in 1972, reaching an annual output of 229 million tons. By 1979, it had fallen to 200 million tons, and by 1982, it plummeted to 100 million tons. Simultaneously, manufacturing employment in the Rust Belt region also sharply declined. In 1950, manufacturing employment accounted for over 50% of total employment, but by 2000, it had dropped to 33%, with most of the decrease occurring in the 1970s and 1982. Witnessing this manufacturing decline, far-sighted individuals in the U.S. at the time issued warnings. Professor Lou Feng quoted a best-selling American book from the 1980s, which stated, "The substantive problems of the American economy can be traced to a trend where capital, in the form of financial resources and physical factories and equipment, has shifted from productive investment in our nation's basic industries to unproductive speculation, mergers and acquisitions, and overseas investment, leaving behind closed factories, laid-off workers, and many newly emerging ghost towns." I once made a video explaining that many American manufacturing companies appear to be manufacturers, but are actually financial services companies. Their main goal is not to sell their products, but to sell their own company's stock. Since the 1980s, the financial sector's share of U.S. GDP has soared, and its profits have continuously risen. In 2009, the financial sector's profits were 6 times the average profit. From 1980 to 2005, financial sector profits increased by 800%, while non-financial sector profits only increased by 200%. In contrast, from 1930 to 1980, the profit growth rates of the financial and non-financial sectors were roughly consistent. This means that the U.S. broke the Bretton Woods system and pursued financial expansion, leading to the financial sector's growth far exceeding that of the non-financial sector. Another piece of data is the expansion of financial assets. In 1978, bank assets accounted for about 53% of GDP. By 2000, this rose to 84%. Securities firms' assets soared from 1.3% to 22%. All of this is due to the continuous deregulation of Wall Street after 1970. As financial capital grew, its influence on the economy became increasingly significant, causing American companies to operate more and more according to the rules of the financial market. And the logic of finance inevitably dismantles industries that require long-term investment. Before the 1970s, before the rise of neoliberalism, the core ideology of corporate culture was corporate state decision-making. What does this mean? It means that corporate governors should consider broad social goals. A company has social responsibilities, and corporate governance should balance the interests of shareholders, employees, consumers, and the community. This is very similar to what we emphasize today, like companies such as Huawei. However, after the 1970s, this ideology changed. Neoliberalism gave rise to the ideology of shareholder value maximization in corporate governance. Protecting shareholder interests became the sole goal of corporate governance. This is why companies like Tesla, which should focus on manufacturing cars, have made little progress in car development in recent years. Instead, they are obsessed with hyping various concepts to make Tesla the world's most valuable car company by market capitalization. This is also why Boeing outsourced many important production processes to India, leading to frequent quality problems. This is all because they don't care about their products or their customers. They only care about one thing: maximizing shareholder interests. So they will only continuously transfer factories to places with lower production costs. If American companies had even a shred of social responsibility, intelligent dark factories, lights-out manufacturing for spinning, for example, should have first appeared in the United States, not China. What's even worse is that Wall Street discovered that instead of waiting for a company to develop slowly and share the profits it generates, it's faster to break the company apart, restructure it, package it, and sell it off, or relist it. This is similar to some real estate speculators who buy old houses, renovate them, and then sell them. I've seen many such houses in the US. In photos, the houses look beautifully renovated, but once you actually step inside, a strong odor of cheap renovation materials hits you. All the renovation materials are of the lowest quality. I saw one extreme case where wooden flooring was laid in the bathroom. It was clear they bought too much flooring and had nowhere else to use it, so they just laid it in the bathroom. Now, all American companies are like this. They look glamorous on the outside, but inside, they're rotten to the core. Do you think companies managed with such a philosophy can develop well? Let me give another example. Blizzard Entertainment. Initially, this company's culture was games first. All decisions revolved around how to provide players with the best experience. It created countless classics. However, after Activision acquired Blizzard, it transformed Blizzard into a company serving shareholders. As a result, Blizzard's games became worse and worse. Later, Microsoft acquired Activision Blizzard, and similarly, immediately after the acquisition, layoffs occurred. The result is that Blizzard's games are even worse than before. Now, it seems whatever Microsoft acquires dies. In contrast, look at Tencent. Its subsidiaries like Riot Games for League of Legends and Epic Games for Unreal Engine have all released better products after Tencent's acquisitions. This is because these companies maintained independent operations after the acquisitions. Although these companies are not manufacturing companies, the principle is the same. Many people think that excessive financialization simply means that the financial industry is more profitable than manufacturing, leading everyone to pursue finance and no one wanting to engage in manufacturing. In reality, its harm goes far beyond that. So now, we know the truth of history. The decline of American industry was self-inflicted. Economic financialization is the decisive force behind the decline of American industry. Knowing this truth, let's look at the US-Vietnam trade agreement. It contradicts the goal of revitalizing American manufacturing. Are Trump's tariffs effective? Let's look at Vietnam's exports to the US. $18 billion in textiles, $10 billion in shoes, $10 billion in furniture, and $24 billion in electronics. Is imposing tariffs on these things meaningful? Does Trump's team not understand this? I believe they do. What they truly want is to create better penetration conditions for American financial capital and to continue maintaining American hegemony. It's old wine in new bottles, just like what Nixon did in 1971, breaking the existing world economic system and making the whole world pay for it, screwing the whole world. We must remember one thing. The interests of the American ruling class are often at odds with the well-being of most American people, and even the entire world. This is actually America's deadlock. Even after the 2008 financial crisis, which made Americans aware of the fragility of the American economy, the fundamental problem of America's industrial decline has become a social consensus. But in the end, when it comes to implementation, they still cannot choose the right path. This is called historical inevitability. Now the question is, what should China do? Let me share my personal opinion. I believe China should accelerate industrial upgrading and increase investment in manufacturing, without holding back. Don't worry about overcapacity. Do you remember the chart I showed you? Industry is a system, and various industries support each other. Don't single out a particular industry for focused development and label other industries as backward production capacity, trying to restrict their development. Traditional industries can also improve productivity through new technologies, just like the dark factory for spinning I mentioned earlier. Textiles are definitely a traditional industry, but Jiangsu Dakeng Group's smart spinning factory produced 2,200 tons in the first quarter of 2024. Achieving sales revenue of 57.1 million RMB. Data released by the company shows that the production efficiency of the smart spinning factory increased by about 15. The comprehensive cost per ton of yarn decreased by over 1,000 RMB, and the labor required per 10,000 spindles was less than 10 people, with per capita labor costs only about half of traditional workshops. Now, I ask you, what does it take to build such a factory? Doesn't it require 5 grams communication, automated robots, and artificial intelligence? And what do these products need? They need chips. Aren't these all new productive forces? In the end, you'll find that traditional industries become the end consumers of high-tech industries. This is because different industrial sectors are complementary and interconnected in terms of supply and demand. Developing traditional industries can also drive the development of new productive forces. If we insist on curbing the capacity of traditional industries, it will indirectly suppress new productive forces. I know many traditional enterprises are highly polluting industries, but this precisely provides a demand for technological innovation. What we should do is solve environmental problems by improving technology. Simply controlling pollution by limiting capacity to meet local environmental assessment targets is essentially a political facade. True governance is never simply shutting down operations. China's economy needs traditional industries as its main force. I believe that as long as China can change its thinking, it need not fear American suppression. It's still the same saying, you fight your way, I fight my way. If your Wall Street is so powerful, go ahead and harvest your allies. We just need to focus on our own development and achieve our predetermined goals. You launch atomic bombs, I'll throw hand grenades. I'll seize your weaknesses, and in the end, I will defeat you.